All right. Well, hello. This is Reuben Jones with Dignity and Power Now. I'm sitting here with Kerry, Shakaboona Marshall, one of the foremost leaders in Philadelphia in terms of Black liberation. And we want to talk with you today about some of your own experiences and thoughts as we acknowledge and celebrate Black August. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right, brother Ruben. How you doing?
It's good to see that smile, man. I know you've been putting in some work. I know you had a vacation recently, but it's good to see that, like, with all this intense work that's going on, you still got your smile and your humanity with you. So I want to acknowledge that first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Absolutely. So let's take a step back a little bit and talk about, like, you're a guy that so your Mama Pat has been on the front line for years.
Yes.
You've been fighting in Philadelphia, but you were her counterpart behind bars. So while she was out here moving and shaking, you was inside moving and shaking, still fighting for your own freedom, but also taking responsibility of leading other folks while he's incarcerated. So let's talk about what that meant to you, just as an organizer and leader inside, and some of the stuff that led you to formulating HRC in the Movement newsletter.
Yeah. So like what that meant for me was, first of all, I came to prison as a juvenile, 17 years old, pretty much like George Jackson did when he first came through. And so, there was a vibrant Black liberation movement still within the prison systems in the 1980s and the 90s. And mostly because of uh, political prisoners that have been incarcerated in the 1960s and the 70s, from the Black Panther, from Revolutionary Action Movement, from the Black Sudanese Army and the Black Liberation Army. And so these people, they set the tone. So when I came to prison, the prisons were still, very militant, and I wound up getting involved with that because, I come from, I'm a son of, parents that was in the struggle. And so I know everything and they ain't teach me everything. So, I had things I had to learn on my own. And coming in prison, that's what I learned. So when I first came to prison, Reuben, I was in Holmesburg prison in the late 1980s and 1988. And at that time, they called Holmesburg prison the Terror Dome because it was violent. And like people did not want to be there at all. Neither did myself. It's not a place I wanted to be. But I remember coming up in there, there were older prisoners. Like one of the first books that they gave me was Message to the Black Man, by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And given the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley, and I was given Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. These is like some of the heavy literature that I was getting 17, 18 years old. And like I say, that set the tone. We still had movements going on in there. So yeah, you had gangsterism that was still going on, right? You had the knuckleheads, you know what I'm saying? But that criminal mentality that was very prevalent as well. But you had other movements going on. And so one of them was that Black conscious movement that we know of today.
Let's unpack something real quick because you mentioned a hell of a dynamic. So you're 17, 18 years old. You're in one of the most deadliest prisons in the country. I remember when they shut Owensburg down, it was front page news, right? But on the flip side, you had brothers, men who were pouring into you, who were giving you books, who were investing in your own leadership and your own intellectual development. Can we just talk about that for a quick second? Because I think that sometimes we lose sight of some of the teaching, tutoring, and learning that goes on behind the walls when you take that initiative and when you have mentors. So let's talk about some of those mentors that talk about how you began to unravel some of the, or deconstruct some of that, when we get indoctrinated, into that lifestyle before prison. So can we talk about that for a quick minute?
Yes. So when I come through, there was, like I said, a Black freedom struggle, very, very vibrant in the prison system. And so, at a young age, God, tapped me and put me forward to be like the spokesperson, within the prison systems, you know what I mean, to speak about the conditions and the treatment of prisoners, mostly because, I had a nice voice, meaning I could talk good, I was relatable and I could talk. And so, some people wasn't like that. Some people was very hands-on, very physical, you know what I'm saying? Guys that I could do both. I can be physical and I can be intellectual. And so they needed a representative. So I was always tapped to be a representative, even as a young age. Older guys would tap me, But at the same time, I was schooled by people like Omar Ali Sistrom, who was a political Russell Maroon Schultz, who was also a political prisoner of the Black Panther Party. Joseph Joe Bowens, who was a political prisoner of the Black Liberation Army. And several Nation of Islam members and leaders back in those days was actually, schooling me. So, I mean, I got educated by the best and I got mentored by the best. And so that helped shape me. But I had to develop on my own because, like they say, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't necessarily drink. And so I had to drink the water myself because I had to get out of what George Jackson said, get out of that criminal mentality, right? And to adopt a revolutionary mentality. And what the Nation of Islam used to call it back in the day, they used to call it, getting out of the old man and coming into the new man, as Minister Malcolm X used to say. So I was trying to grow and transform from the old man into the new man, from a criminal mentality to a revolutionary mentality. And that takes time. And so, but it was these elders that helped me out. You know what I'm saying? And but it was within me to want that change. And when it took some time, but when it came about in due season.
Got you. So let's talk about that due season, right? Because when I came home in 2002, HRC was already kind of being formed with Walida, with Mama Pat, with Teresa Schultz. And these are all women who out here just leading the charge. But you one of the guys that were inside as part of that, like kind of inside internal board. And, so talk to us, how did you get involved with just like, I know you talk about the history and your parents and that kind of, but how did you, with the vision, with the commitment, with the drive, and even the organization skills, kind of put that together? Where'd that come from? And how'd you guys like really manifest the vision to make it real?
Well, that all started, I like to say that was always inherent within me. You know what I'm saying? I always had leadership skills. I always was charismatic since a young kid. I always led and, like that. So when I came to prison, I was able to hone those skills. You know what I'm saying? I had elders that helped me hone those skills, and so, but they helped me develop my maturity. You know what I'm saying? They helped me develop foresight and helped me to engage in critical thinking. And that was most important for me. So I was an academic. I read a lot. And so reading the elders that we know of, a lot of these great Black thinkers, African thinkers, that got me thinking, especially with George Jackson reading Soul, Blood in My Eye and Soul Dad Brothers, right? I paid attention. If you listen to, or if you read like Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, and the list goes on, Ella Baker, they always are giving us instructions. Now, whether we follow those instructions or not, that's up to us. You have to be a good student and a good listener. And so I was a good student and I was a good listener. So I listened to when George Jackson said, hey, we have to organize inside, right? And we have to organize outside, right? And so that always stayed on my mind. And he always said that when you organize inside the prison system, you're basically in their house. You're in the belly of the beast for real, right? And so they have the authority over you to repress you, to throw you in solitary confinement, you, to keep you buried, to put more time on you, to keep you in prison, even if you was about to get out. Like they can take your life away, right? Or they can just kill you, assassinate you. And so one George Jackson said, to neutralize that, we need to organize on the outside as well, so that we can have people who are concerned, right? Our community who are concerned, and will put a stop to that. And so I always remembered that. So, but what led to the Human Rights Coalition was, I remember I left out of Huntington State Penitentiary, I believe in 1994. And I left JoJo Bowens, right, at Huntington State Prison, and I got sent to the newly formed Greene County Super Maximum Security Prison. And so when I went there, I ran into Russell Maroon Schultz, the elder from the Black Panther Party and a political prisoner as well. And so when me and him got the vibe, and I had a heavy concern on my mind, and what it was that, we all come up in that George Jackson prisoner rights movement, right? And at this time, mass incarceration, tough on crime was in full swing. And so they pretty much crushed the prisoner rights movement that was in the 60s and the 70s and part of the 1980s. They crushed it with tough on crime and so on, right? And the building of the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration, they crushed it. So I was concerned about it. So I didn't really know what to do about it, but I knew we had to do something. So I went to the elder Maroon, and I told him, I said, Maroon, I said, man, they crushed the movement, bro. We got to do something. We got to revive it. We got to resuscitate it or something, bro. And so he was like, well, what do you suggest? I was coming to the elder for some suggestions, you know what I'm saying? But the elder put it on me, because I found out later he knew, but he wanted me to work my own mind. You know what I'm saying? To analyze the whole situation and to come up with a solution myself. And so I did that. I bust my brain cells for about 3 days, right? And finally, I said, bro, we got to start a whole new movement. You know what I'm saying? And the movement can't be focused on the inside like it has been for all these decades. We going to now have to organize on the outside, and we're going to have to use our families. And he was like, you got it, And so that was the HRC, the Human Rights Coalition, in its embryonic stage right there. When we came to that conclusion. After that, me and him was just right in the prison yard, walking it off every day, just building from 1994 all the way till 2000, and actually we had a trial run. We started, I tried to start a HRC, but it wasn't called that. We was calling it the Families and Prisoners United, right? Or something like that. And I was trying to start that with another brother by the name of Ishango Bundy, right? With his mother, Lillian Bundy. Ishango passed away several years ago, but we tried to do it, and we didn't get it off the ground. We wasn't able to do it, right? And so a few more years passed. Then, we wound up adding the component of human rights, because we looking at, okay, what's the next step for? And so me and Maroon got to be talking, and we was speaking about how Marcus Garvey was saying that it's all about human rights and human dignity. And then Martin Luther King also reached that same conclusion when he said it's no longer about civil rights, it's about human rights. Malcolm X said the same thing, and he even went as far as saying, listen, we got to go into the United Nations, right? And we have to press for our freedom, from liberation from this oppressive country that has enslaved us, terrorized us, and colonized us, right? And so, we was on that. Huey P. Newton followed suit. So, hey, I took on the baton. Maroon took on the baton. You know what I'm saying? And other people, our comrades in the struggle, we all took on the baton to start pushing forth a human rights movement instead of a civil, or instead of a prisoner's right movement. Right. So that's what we was pushing. And we felt as though we need to push this to the extent that it's not just based on criminal justice, but we're talking about human rights applies to everything. It applies to education. Education is a human right, right? Water is a human right.
Mm-hmm.
Clothing, shelter is all human right. Healthcare is a human right. We start pushing this back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. We start pushing this, and so, but for us to get it off, all of us men, we locked into prisons. We in the supermax, maximum penitentiary. We're in solitary confinement. So we had to do all of this from solitary confinement. So basically, we had to do what Larry Hoover and them did in Chicago. We had to do what Stanley Tuckley Williams did in California, except we did it right here in Pennsylvania, right? We organized a movement on the street throughout the whole Philadelphia and throughout the whole state of Pennsylvania. And then we also reached across the country and started spreading human rights movement, right? But we knew the only way we can do it is with people who had our interests at heart. We knew the white liberals didn't do it. The white liberals didn't have our interests at heart. The lawyers didn't do it. Those other prisoner rights organizations couldn't do it. They didn't have our rights, our interests at heart, and a lot of them had sold us out. But we know the only ones that would never sell us out, that will be with us through thick and thin, come visit us, put money on our books, you know, the whole nine, right? Is our mothers, our grandmothers, our wives, our baby mothers, right?
Yeah.
The women. And we understood through history that woman has always been the backbone of the Black liberation struggle in America, whether it was the civil rights movement or the Black Power movement. Women has always been that backbone. They the engine. They make it work, and we understood that. So we had to call on our mothers. I had to call on Mama Pat. Room called on his daughters.
Yeah.
You know, Baca called on his mother. Robert Salim Holbrook called on his mom and his sister. You know, so like all of us, we got the women folk involved, and we had a dynamic young Black student, right, by the name of Walida Emirati.
Yeah.
And she was a firecracker, right? So like
Still is.
Still is.
So just so you know, Walida gave me my indoctrination as I return home with all these great ideas of this how we did it in the prison. This is what we need to do now. You know how you come on with that energy. Well, my buddy Ray X had came home first. He's now deceased.
Right.
He came home first. He started getting involved with the movement, got connected with Walida and and she's kind of like mentoring to them. He prepared the way when folks like myself came home, and she was carrying that torch that like really, she was like our version of Angela Davis. And I used to call her that, you know, because back then she used to rock this big ass afro. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember we used to go to get something to eat sometime, like after meeting or whatever. And she was like, this is the first person I met who's like super vegetarian, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I had to do a whole lot of adjustments just to kind of, you know, find my own space. So I get what you're saying.
Right.
Those are some dynamic female or woman leaders right here in our community. And we got to tip our hat to them, to Mama Pat, to Walida, to Teresa. Right. Teresa's a soldier. When I say soldier, I mean this. I've seen this woman like just give her all and really honor her father in the movement. So I do want to tip my hat to them. But when you go back to like the origins of HRC, and then, you know, it wasn't just enough to stop there with mobilizing folks. Y'all created the newsletter. So give me a little bit about that, just disseminating information on the outside under these real strange circumstances. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, the thing about the newsletter, right? So prison newsletters come a dime a dozen, right?
Right.
You may remember,
we've had one.
Right. Yeah. You may have called many newsletters around within the prisons, right? And they were very good, right? And but it came about because when I was younger, you know, we up Huntington, and you know, I could break down what was going on in the system, right? And so I had guys, they always wanted me to talk to their families and break prison system of what we were going through, right? So they said, this brother, you know how to break it down real good, man. Tell my mom or tell my grandma what you was telling me about the prison industrial. I said, bro, it just got too heavy. So I started thinking about making a newsletter. I said, the difference, I said, if I ever make a newsletter, I'm not going to direct it to prisoners. Because that's like preaching to the choir. We already
Right.
experiencing it firsthand, so I don't need to tell you about this, right?
Right.
Tell the people who don't know. That's your families. That's our community. That's the public, the general public at large. So I
Right.
said, whenever I get a chance, I'm a file. I'm gonna start my own magazine, and we educate the public, the
Right.
masses. So
Right.
that's what we sought out to do. Now, of course, I didn't get this done. I didn't ever do it. So fast forward 10 years later, we run into Walida, right?
Right.
Maroon and I started the HRC newsletter. And it started off just, we did this in the cell. Like he did the
Right.
drawing. We put little, it was like a comic book.
Right. Right. Right.
And the little things where you put the words in,
Yep. The bubbles.
the little bubbles, right? You put the
Yeah.
bubbles. We had it just like that, man. And we still have it today within our Prison Abolitionist Archive Center, the first
Right.
newsletter. And so we started off with that with each other. While Lita came in and she upped it to a whole nother level. So now we print, we get published, we doing it up. That lasted for about 4 years until Walida, she went back on to the West Coast to organize, taking a teaching position, I believe, at the UCLA. And so that left me with, okay, what I'm going to do with the newsletter, right? And so now I have the opportunity to put, because I kept telling Walida, I got this idea. We got to do this idea. She's like, all right, we're going to do it. But we never got to it. But now she's gone. I said, you know what? I just got to put it on my shoulders and do the way I wanted to do. So I took HRC newsletter and I transformed it and called it The Movement, right? Because that's what we're in. We're in a movement. And this movement is for freedom, justice, and equality. It's for equity. It's for liberation, right? It's for a lot of things, right? Noble things. And so but the way I came about it, I believe I was reading what's the book called? The history of I forget the name of the book. It'll come to me. The history of American, something like that, by Howard Zinn. What's it called? That?
History of Violence in America.
No, not that one. It's
something
not
like
that one.
Okay.
I remember it'll come to mind. But I was a well-known Howard Zinn book, I believe. And in there, it was breaking down all the different struggles in America. And so they got to SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, right? Which they all wound up changing to the Student National Coordinating Committee. And so SNCC never had a magazine except one chapter, and it was a chapter out in California that had a magazine, and their magazine was actually called The Movement. So when I seen it, I was an admirer of SNCC, the organization, and of his leaders, Stokely Carmichael, right? And so I said, I'm gonna name the HRC magazine The Movement, because this fits our time right here, and I'm honoring our ancestors and what they did before us, right? So that's how I get The Movement magazine. And so then, instead of directing it to prisoners, incarcerated people, I started directing the publication to the public, and we made it free for the public. So now people are no longer mystified as far as what's going on in prisons. Now they open up a magazine and they can hear what's going on from prisoners right from our very own mouths.
Right.
Now we can get the support that we need. Now we can seek about changing the hearts and minds of the population, of the people, right? To move them out of that indoctrination that they've been taught, for so long. This indoctrination, white supremacy, and that got us as Black and brown people, right? And poor working class people, has us all in these prisons, right? Of social control. So we want to take that mystification out of there. We want to take the prison from out of the mountain and put it in the city, so they can really look at it and analyze it. You know what I mean? We want to shine a light in this darkness and bring forth truth.
Well, you're definitely doing that. So kudos. Moving on to, your fight for freedom. You want to highlight that you feel free, but You've been home for, I think, a little bit more than a year now, and some of the work that you've been doing, if we could just take a few minutes to talk about that, not only with HRC,
Mm.
but even now with this public safety initiative you're doing. So, do you want to talk about some of that work and connect the dots with, coming from being a juvenile in an adult prison, being mentored, running into some of the great legends of Black liberation in PA, being at the forefront of creating a not only a newsletter, but a movement organization, and then coming home and applying all those things and doing the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So I spent 34 years in prison. I came in at 17 years old. So the only thing that got me out of prison after being denied my right to appeal by all the courts of America because of a time bar procedure that they have in place that strips away your right to appeal, I was not able to appeal my unfair trial that I had that gave me an illegal sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So, but because of the United States ruling in the case of what was the case? It was a few cases. It started off with Virginia versus Atkins. Then it went to a few other cases, but it wound up leading to Miller versus Alabama. And Miller versus Alabama said that it's unconstitutional to sentence a juvenile to life without parole, which is what I had. So because of that, I was able to get free. So, but once I got free from the state, I had to leave out of state custody and go back into the federal custody because I had a federal indictment that I had to serve 10 years or within the federal prison system. So within a year of going into the prison system, I filed a petition that basically they reduced my sentence and allowed me to go straight out because of the body of work that I accumulated while I was in prison that helped thousands and maybe even more, tens of thousands of people out in society.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was released to come out and do the work that I've been doing for so long in prison, for at least 30 years in prison. I've been doing this work of organizing. I'm not new to this, you know.
Right.
So when I come out, hit the ground running, because while I was in, I set up the foundation. I set up the network. I set up a movement that I can go home to and just continue pushing it forward, doing the same things I was doing inside. So I was appointed executive director of the Human Rights Court. I still work as an advisor and an organizer for the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration. I started the families, formerly incarcerated family and people's union recently. And so what I've been engaging in since I've been out is I've been doing a lot of community work, community organizing. So, one of the things we've been trying to do for so long is end the barbaric practice of the death penalty, whether it's death penalty by lethal injection or whether it's the other death penalty, which is death by incarceration. That being life without parole sentences or sentences where a person is sentenced to 50, 100, 200, 300 years, right? And so we want to abolish this. So we engage in a campaign to abolish death sentence. We also engage in a campaign to abolish solitary confinement because we understand that scientific studies show that after 15 days in solitary confinement, you have a mental deterioration, right? It causes mental illness. They passed in the United Nations what they call the Mandela rules, which is to restrict the use of solitary confinement and cap it at 15 days, no longer than 15 days. And so we're doing the same thing in America. We're trying to abolish solitary confinement as we know it. We also trying to bring full voting rights to formerly incarcerated people to incarcerated people that's held in county jails and incarcerated people that's in state penitentiaries, right? Because in the state of Pennsylvania, formerly incarcerated people, they can automatically vote, but we're discriminating against in other avenues, as you know. If you're a detainee within the county jail system, you have the right to vote, but you are being disenfranchised, de facto disenfranchised from your right to vote. So we're trying to get them their full voting status, full voting participation, right? For state prison, you can't vote at all. They just took your rights. So we want to allow, we want to get laws and stuff passed where we have universal suffrage, meaning we the absolute voting of everybody. If you in this country as a citizen, then hey, you should be voting, point blank.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that's what it's about. So we have to engage with our communities and helping organize our communities, educating our communities, right? And also motivating our communities, because a lot of our communities have lost hope. And so a lot of stuff that's going on, a lot of different dynamics, you know, violence, gun violence. And so we got to instill hope back into our people and show them that, listen, we can win. And we have been winning for a long time. So we can't let the opposition demoralize our people. And so we know the second thing to that is, once we organize our communities and we empower our communities and we put power, not just empowerment, but we put them in power, because we're about power for the people, right? And so once we get that, then we're about trying to effectuate change within the overall political system. We want to change how the political system works. We want to change the policies. We want to change these laws. It's going to take the collective work and responsibility of our people, of our organizations, of our many leaders, right? And of all our resources to do this. But it all starts with, you know, organizing within our communities. And so we provide mutual aid and things of that nature to help our people.
Right. So I want to back up to one quick thing and then we're going to wrap up. One of the other components of that whole mass incarceration maze, when you mention the juvenile life, is the fact that even when people like yourself who get out on parole, will get out due to a Supreme Court decision, and PA, you're leaving out on a lifetime of parole. We also got people like myself serving long-term sentence on parole. So at Dignity and Power now, we're trying to change that, right? And it fits into that mix of ending death by incarceration, because a life sentence is a life sentence, whether it's inside behind the wall or it's doing a life sentence on parole. And I know you wouldn't trade being behind the walls for being outside, being able to activate your community and being on parole. So we get that. People do deserve to be out. But we do want to shift that narrative from a lifetime of state supervision to, just like you mentioned, the 15 days of solitary, the data also shows that after about 3 years of supervision, there's diminishing returns, meaning it's a waste of money, waste of time, waste of resources, because the vast majority of people, 70 to 80%, who return to prison return within those first 3 years. So to continue to have someone on state supervision for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right, is a bit redundant, and it's a waste of resources. And it kind of sets the table for a person to be forever indebted to the state with supervision fees, and you run a greater risk of them violating you for whatever reason and being sent back to prison even after 20 years of freedom. So I just want to highlight that and really connect the dots with all that work being on a continuum, like and not allow ourselves as activists and organizers to forget from the minute that the person is in cuffs, there's a specific desire to oppress and to dehumanize, and from pretrial detention all the way up to release on supervision. And we got to attack all those elements of mass incarceration equal and evenly. So I just want to highlight that. But, you know, in close, I just want to give you an opportunity to share a few last words and definitely mention the upcoming public safety forum. We got a new mayor coming in. I know you're leading the charge to like bring these issues to the table that affects all of us as human beings, as you mentioned, when defining Human Rights Coalition. So talk to us about that and then give us your closing words, and then we're going to say our goodbyes and thank yous.
Well, first of all, brother, let me say this. I want to honor our ancestors, our illustrious leaders of past in this month of Black August. You know, this is a month that for many decades I have celebrated. And I want people to understand, right? It's not about Black August, it's not about fasting, it's not about training, it's not about studying. And even though we do all those things, right?
Right.
Mostly about is commemorating your ancestors, honoring their struggle and knowing that struggle, and then you do those other things, right? So you can continue the struggle on, as they say. Why, right? The struggle continues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're about in the month of Black August. A lot of people died for us to be here and
Yep.
enjoy privileges that we enjoy today. A lot of
That's
people have prison for it. A lot of people have went into exile for it, like Asada Shakur. You
Yep.
know, have to honor these people. This is what it's all about. You know how back in the day you popped that bottle of liquor and you poured a little bit out for the brothers and sisters
That's right.
during that African libation. And
Yep.
that's what we're doing with the whole month of August. We commemorating our ancestors. We're honoring our ancestors. And
That's
so
right.
with that's when I do that, I look at my ancestors and I see what they struggle for. That
Right.
gives the energy, the power, and everything to continue struggling on and doing what I'm going to do to help uplift our people from out of the deplorable state that we are in this
Mm-hmm.
country that we now call in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, like I say, we have one of the biggest obligations that we have as Black men and even women is that we must have an obligation to teach love, right? Love
Mm-hmm.
of other, love of our brother, love of our sister, love of our own people.
Mm-hmm.
Because without love, you can't be a revolutionary. You can't be a revolutionary without having a love for the people. You know what I'm saying? And so we must instill that within everybody. So when you have that love for the people, you're going to get out there and you're going to say no to this gun violence. You're going to get
Right.
out there and say no to all the victimization that's going on today, all the criminalization that's going on today of Black people preying on other Black people. You're going to try to stop that. You're going to try to better your communities. You're going to try to clean your communities up of all the filth, the drugs, the alcohol, the crime, the economic failure that we
Mm-hmm.
have. And we're going to try to uplift our communities and make them a better place to live. So one of the many things that I do is I organize different events, right? That
Mm-hmm.
about that. You know what I'm saying? Now, Brother Reuben, because we done been doing many events together. And the
Mm-hmm.
latest that we're doing right now is we having a public safety community conversation. Philadelphia, like many other cities, have a
Mm-hmm.
high of homicide, of gun violence and gun death. And so we want to try to create our own public safety initiative. We have an incoming mayor soon to come in. More than likely, it's going to be the first Black American woman that becomes a mayor in Philadelphia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Sherelle Parker, and she plans to bring in her own public safety initiative. Our whole thing is this: we don't want a public safety initiative that's from another city or out of some theoretician's books from some university, and they trying
Right.
to apply her approach to what's going on in Philadelphia. No, Philadelphia is unique in its own ways, right? And so we have to create a public safety initiative that's FUBU, for us and by us.
That's
And
right.
that's what community conversation is about. It's about creating our own public safety initiative. We know what we need for the people. Just
Right.
like today, and all them times in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, the 50s, we can go all the way back. Our people, we knew what we need. We knew we need jobs. We knew that we need food, clothing, housing, right? Equal opportunity, human dignity and respect. We knew it, and we
Right.
knew it. And so uh, the these people who are coming in as political leaders, they can't sit here on a high horse and think that they are above the people, and
Right.
that the people are dumb or are like cattle and they must be led, because a lot of them believe that, right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, we're not. We're thinking human beings. We know what we want for. We know what's good for ourselves, right? And so we
Right.
want to craft our own initiative and bring it forth to the mayors, bring it forth to the city council, bring it forth to the governor, and bring it
Yeah.
forth to the state legislature and say, listen, this is what we want for Philadelphia as a public safety initiative. And here's what we don't want. We
Right.
don't want the militarization of these police. We don't want these police running around in our neighborhoods like cowboys, right?
Right. Right.
And we want our people to be in a position where we can enforce our, the rules and regulations and the laws within our neighborhoods, right? We want to have to be able to partner. We're not sitting here saying you the enemy and all that old stuff like that.
Right. Right.
We want to sit here and let's come together of a meeting of minds, and let's come together, not in opposition, but as partners, and let's try to bring a stop to this gun violence, to the death of our children, because one thing we understand is that the children are our future. And so,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we're going to be doing this the 13th right here in North Philly at Mother African Zor United Methodist Church.
Well,
And we calling on all these politicians to come. Now, whether they come or not, we'll see. Now, if they don't come, then we know where they at.
exactly. And let me add this to the mix, because I think that when you mention about the love for your people, right? We've often heard that you can't lead the people if you don't love the people.
That's
And
right.
for our brothers and sisters coming, mostly the brothers I'm talking to, brothers got to be out here on the front line with this gun violence, man. Like a lot of dudes that serve time, that's coming home, who may have, been involved with gun violence before going to jail, who learned a lesson, who coming out and people looking up to you. You're a leader, both in your family and your community. Your voice has power, right? You have a lot of credibility. You have a lot of history. You have, excellent leadership skills. We got to apply that to our saving our communities, and not just, come home looking to make, yeah, we need to make money. Yeah, we need to, involve ourselves in relationships. We need to do all those things. But we got to be our own saviors of our communities too. We got to put forth the effort. We got to make that sacrifice, because right now ain't nobody gonna save us but us, right? And you mentioned models from other cities. The real model is for men, and this ain't no sexist or paternalistic or chauvinistic comment, but we need Black men to take their role in Black communities, period. And, at the end of the day, anybody who got opposition, that got opposition to us thriving as a community, because traditionally, every family need balance. And the Black family has traditionally had that balance with mother, father, extended family, grandma, aunties. So it takes all of us to control and to manage our families again. And then that's when part of what we see is the lack of like family unity, like family support and community support. So if we can get brothers to step up to the plate, lend themselves, lend their expertise, lend their time, they come out and really engage. If nothing else, engage with your family, your children, your nephews, your cousins, the people next door to you. You don't even need an organization or a movement. Just come out and do that thing. And I think we could begin to really make a difference. So I commend you for the work that you're doing. I definitely acknowledge and salute you during this month of Black August. And I just want to, give you my personal respect and love, and tip my hat to you and ask you to continue to do the work that you're doing and continue to lead other brothers and be that shining example, as Ali Davis said about Malcolm X, a shining prince in terms of leadership in our community. So with that, we're going to end it. I want to give you a chance to have the last word. And then, and then we're going to call it a night.
Okay. Yeah, brother. So I would like to say this, man. We have to understand what a man is, right?
Right.
And the way we understand what a man is by understanding what a man shouldn't be doing, right? And what a man ain't. A man ain't a person that just goes around making babies. That doesn't make you a man.
Right.
You committing crimes doesn't make you a man. You holding guns and acting tough doesn't make you a man. You going to prison and standing up and all this old bull crap doesn't make you a man. You know, what makes you a man is you taking responsibility for yourself, for your family, your children, and for your community, of you standing up for what is right and forbidding what is wrong.
Right.
Now, one of the things, like I say, we have a lot of stuff going on in the community. The men should be front and center.
Absolutely.
Front and center. We should have 10,000 men on the front lines in Philadelphia trying to stop this violence.
Right.
Now, this ain't a new call. This call been made by other leaders in the past. But we have a foe, right? An open enemy that has been continuous short-stopping any type of advancement we have been trying to make to really end violence, because they really don't want to end violence.
Right.
They profit off of it. They benefit off of it. You know, and so, but we want to stop that. I'm tired of seeing, you know, the young kids, you know, committing a senseless act of gun violence or whatever, and one person is going in the grave and 3 of them is going into prison for life without parole or death. They done got 4 people off the playing field. You know, I don't want to see that. So, but I just want people to step up, man, be men. And what I mean by that is, you know, nothing, you know, it ain't about no, you know, male chauvinism stuff or anything of that nature. I'm just saying, just take responsibility of your own self and your own actions. Stop blaming other people for what's going wrong, for what you got, what you don't got. You know what I'm saying? Focus on moving forward. Forget about all that. Yeah, we know we got people trying to hold us back, but we can't use that as an excuse to not move forward, not getting the job done. So instead of black men keep going out to a party, go out to the streets and let's stop this gun violence. Let's stop the drug selling on the street. Let's stop the beating of women on the street, because you got a lot of guys, they fighting women like they fight dudes. When did we start doing that? So to be men in that sense, a responsible adult that's taking care of his family and his community. And I like to applaud you too, Reuben, because, you know, you got that frontline dads. Boy, that's so powerful, man. Like, it brought tears to my eyes when you first put that out and start being successful with it. And I see you too, brother, straight up.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. But again, it's about father leadership.
Right. We need it.
It's about father leadership to pave the way for us, right? So, you know, ain't that new under the sun. So if we believe in it, that's why I said I love what you said. If you believe in a thing, you got to do that thing.
Yeah.
If you love your community, then you want to keep it clean. You want to keep it violence free. You want to protect the women. You want to mentor the children. So that's what I measure man by, not his words, but his deeds. So I appreciate you for acknowledging that, though.
Yeah, and thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on this platform, and I'm honored to give, you know, the little knowledge that I have. You know, I'm still a student in this, and I'll be a student to the day I die, brother. I'm humble about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm willing to learn and everything, man. But I respect you, man. I thank you for this opportunity, and I like to say to everybody, Ashe.
Ashe. And we're gonna do it again, man. We're kicking this thing off for Black August, because honestly, a lot of time our heroes and our leaders ain't being acknowledged, and we're not having an in-depth conversation we need to have. So sometimes we might see a person on a panel or in a meeting, but we ain't really getting a chance to dig deep, right? To get to the meat and potatoes, right? So we want to create this platform that we can start doing that. So after Black August is over, we're gonna be launching a podcast that really kind of dig deep into those everyday community issues. And I'm gonna invite you back. We can spend some time talking about those things as well. All right?
Yeah, and I love to be back, bro.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. I'll see you at the next meeting, and keep leading, brother, and keep fighting.
All right. Peace and blessings, brother.
Peace, man.
All right.